Hello and welcome to United Report. This is your home for all the latest Manchester United news, match updates, transfer stories, and in-depth analysis. Stay connected and never miss a moment. Subscribe now to stay ahead with everything happening at Old Trafford. Ruben Amorim claims Manchester United are on the right track to progress because he can hear it during training sessions. United remain a dismal 15th in the Premier League table before facing Everton at Goodison Park on Saturday lunchtime. And since arriving as Erik Ten Hag's replacement, Amorim has failed to steady a leaking ship with problems at both the back and in attack. But he is backing the team to get better and reckons there has been plenty of evidence on the training pitch. They are improving, creating relationships. Even the sound of the training is different, Amorim said in his press conference to preview United's last ever visit to Goodison and a meeting with the club's former manager, David Moyes. But we have to use that in the game, and we have to take that step. I feel in training we are bonding and understanding the way we want to play, but then in a game, we struggle a lot. Asked to expand on what he meant by the sound of training, Amorim said, "The sound is like when you are training and you are making an exercise. You hear the sound. People are talking, asking for the ball, giving directions and talking with each other. You can feel it in the environment. If you spend your life as a player and a coach, even the sound of the training is important, and I feel we are changing that." Lenny Yoro illness, Manuel Ugarte knock, and Christian Eriksen illness are fit to return against Everton, having missed last weekend's defeat away to Tottenham Hotspur. United were drawn against Real Sociedad in the Europa League round of 16, but Amorim added, "I just want to win against Everton. I want to be clear on that. We have a lot of issues to solve. If I'm thinking about Real Sociedad and winning trophies, that's not the right way to do my job," he said. Liverpool legend Graeme Souness has told Ruben Amorim that his tactics are giving Manchester United's weak-minded players an excuse to keep failing. Amorim has been steadfast in his approach since replacing Erik Ten Hag in the Old Trafford dugout, insisting on a 3-4-3-1 formation, despite reports that players are questioning his tactics behind the scenes. The 40-year-old boss believes that what worked at former clubs Braga and Sporting Lisbon will also be successful in the Premier League, where he's only won 4 of his 14 games so far. Souness, though, reckons that his tactics are giving United's players an easy get-out, as they can point to the system being the problem and not themselves. It's an excuse, and weak-minded players always love an excuse. It's the system, not them, the former Liverpool captain and manager wrote in his column for the Daily Mail. To walk through the door and impose your playing style without evaluating the staff in front of you is either very brave or very naive. It goes against everything I was taught as a player under all the great managers I worked under. If you take over a job halfway through a season, it's usually because the club is in turmoil, the roof is leaking, and at United it quite literally was. Arriving at that new club as a manager, you see what players you have to work with and then adopt a style that suits them. How you train, your preparation for games, the timetables, the travel, the hotels. You have a bit of push me pull you, back and forth before you devise a plan that takes away every possible grievance, so that when it comes down to playing and any criticism begins, there are no excuses for those players. The Scottish icon went on to say, "Some are not fit to wear the Manchester United strip, but Amorim's stubbornness over imposing his system is giving them that excuse not to perform." What compounds the issue is that he is making unnecessary compromises. When injuries, such as those suffered last week, enforce changes, you should keep your really good players in their best positions. Compromising them just weakens your team further. Amorim will hope that his system clicks when United travel to face Everton on Saturday, marking their last ever trip to Goodison Park. The Red Devils then host relegation-battling Ipswich on Wednesday before their FA Cup round of 16 clash at home to Fulham next weekend. When Manchester United travels to Everton in the Premier League on Saturday, they could benefit from a fortunate omen. The Reds will take on the Toffees at lunchtime this weekend as they kick off the Premier League weekend on Merseyside. This kick-off time is not one that often crops up on the United fixture list, but when it does, they have a good record in those games. During the last 9 matches played in the Premier League at 12:30, United have been victorious on 7 occasions. This includes a victory over Saturday's opponents Everton and local rivals Manchester City. United will hope that their recent success at lunchtime will inspire a change of fortunes for them. After Sunday's 1-0 defeat at Tottenham Hotspur, the Reds have dropped to the lowly position of 15th, just 12 points above the relegation zone. Alarmingly, their current points tally of 29 would only be enough to save them in 2 of the last 10 Premier League campaigns. On average during this time period, clubs have needed to reach 35 points to avoid relegation to the Championship. Ruben Amorim's side are not favourites to be relegated at this stage, but there is a concern regarding where the next victory will come from. United's options in attack are limited following the injury to Ahmad, with both Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee struggling for goals too. United last tasted victory in the Premier League at the end of January after Lisandro Martinez's brilliant strike. The Argentine defender will be out for a significant period of time after suffering an injury during the clash with Crystal Palace earlier this month. Manchester United winger Alejandro Garnacho has taken the unconventional decision to send his support to rival Erling Haaland after Manchester City were knocked out of the Champions League on Wednesday night. The Norwegians scored in the first leg for the Blues last week as City collapsed to a desperate 3-2 defeat to Real Madrid at the Etihad Stadium. In the reverse leg this week, Pep Guardiola chose to name Haaland among the substitutes as City crashed out of Europe at the playoffs. Kylian Mbappe's hat-trick at the Bernabeu pushed Carlo Ancelotti's side out of sight, with Nico Gonzalez's consolation not enough to rescue City. Haaland had to watch all this from the sidelines, but while he was unable to impact the result on Wednesday, he did send a defiant message to his followers on Instagram. He wrote, "We remain as one. Sometimes you have to experience this in life and learn from it. You can't always win. We'll rise again together." While the message was aimed at the City fan base in particular, Garnacho decided to like the post in a strange show of support. The rivalry between City and United needs no explanation, and while a lot of players from both sides socialise with one another in Manchester, few openly advertise their friendship on social media. Garnacho's social media use has been criticised previously after it was reported last year that he had liked critical posts about former manager Erik ten Hag on X. Earlier this year, the Argentine deleted his X profile but remains active on Instagram, mainly posting about his family life in England. City and United will face each other again before the end of the season, when Haaland's men travel to Old Trafford on April 5th. Sir Jim Ratcliffe endured a shocking interaction with Manchester United's women's captain Katie Zeelam as he asked her what her role was at the club. The Ineos chief has been at the helm for a year, but copped huge criticism for some unpopular decisions off the pitch and continued failings on it. One criticism thrown at Ratcliffe has been a lack of care for the female section of the club. The billionaire has taken on the club's football operations and during a tour of Carrington came across the women's captain, who has spent 15 years on the red side of Manchester across 2 separate spells. However, the Telegraph reports that Ratcliffe asked Zeelam what she did at the club despite her role as the team's skipper. The 29-year-old was named United captain ahead of the 2019-20 campaign and led her side to glory in the 2023-24 Women's FA Cup, which was the first major trophy in the team's history. Zeelam has also earned 12 international caps for England. She was also named the Women's Player of the Year in 2019. In this season's Women's Super League, United are sat second, trailing Chelsea by 7 points. Ian Wright, who has been a big advocate of the women's game and criticised Ratcliffe is the past for treating the women's side as an afterthought, with his focus solely on making the men's side competitive again. He said on women's football podcast Crossways, "When you hear murmurings of Man United saying, once we sort out the men's, we're going to focus on the women's, when is that going to be? You look at the men's and how far they are off it at the minute. When are they actually going to take notice of the women's? I genuinely believe, especially with how Manchester United women are playing, they do not care. They genuinely do not care enough." Ratcliffe has not yet had the desired affect in Manchester, with the team going backwards since his arrival. He's continued to cut costs and source new revenue streams in an effort to help the Red Devils become a success again. But he's already sacked Erik ten Hag and spent big money on summer signings who are yet to meet expectations. Ruben Amorim is now the man in charge but has a horrendous record with United poised to post their worst ever Premier League season. Former Manchester United defender Phil Jones reckons the club has a supremely talented crop of young players, capable of returning the team to the top, including a striker who could step up to solve Ruben Amorim's goal-scoring woes. Jones, who has worked in a coaching role at United's academy in Carrington since retiring prematurely, is tipping some of the unfamiliar names that appeared on the bench for the first team's latest defeat to Tottenham last weekend to become household names. And chief among them is young Danish centre-forward Chido Obi Martin, who emerged off the bench for his debut in North London. Obi Martin, 17, joined United from Arsenal in October because he felt there was a clearer path to first-team action on top of a better financial deal on offer. Speaking to Sam Allardyce on the No Tippy Tappy Football podcast, Jones said, "Working in and around the academy and helping those young players develop, United have some really good and talented young players coming through. The squad had a lot of injuries against Tottenham, and the bench was full of kids, but there were some talented players on that bench. People might not know a lot about them now, but they certainly will in the next few years. I think you look at Kobbie Mainoo, top player. You look at Chido, who we've just signed from Arsenal, who's an animal. You look at Ahmad, who had a couple of really good loans. And I remember watching him winning it against Liverpool in extra time last season. And I had said at that time he'd play a huge part in the next season. I played with Ahmad for a year or two, and you could see then that the quality he had was really good and really strong. As I said, there's a great crop of young players ready to be given the chance, and integrated into the team, United sit an astonishing 15th in the Premier League table, with both Rasmus Højlund and Joshua Zirkzee struggling up front for a team that has collectively scored just 28 times in 25 games. Amorim takes his side to Goodison Park for the final time this weekend to face former United boss David Moyes.